When you realize that America might not be the best country in the entire world, and that you come to terms with the fact that there are other cultures out there, and you get rid of that pride, you get rid of that blind nationalism, and you just kind of throw yourself into a new culture, but you're in a country like China where your nationality and who you are and where you come from is the lifeblood of your identity. It becomes super conflicting. Hey Laowinners, it's ADVChina here with another video, and a lot of people have been asking me this, and I thought it was probably one of the most requested and interesting patron requested topics I've ever actually decided to cover. And that is, how has my perception of the US or the West in general changed after moving to China? And it's super complicated to answer, but I thought about, really what are my feelings now towards my home country, the place that I grew up. Now there's a certain sense of freedom that somebody gets when moving abroad. You're packing your bags, you're leaving everything behind, and I feel like everyone can relate to this in a certain way, even if you've never moved abroad or even been abroad. Think about that shitty job you had in high school, whether it was like flipping burgers or working at Kinko's or answering to a shitty boss and working for basically minimum wage. We've all had to do something to make money that we are not super pleased in doing. And I can equate the feeling of the last day of that shitty job or leading up to the last day of that shitty job that you don't want to do anymore, knowing that you're going to quit, move on to something better. There is an unparalleled sense of freedom there that I can equate to the feeling you get when you leave everything behind and move abroad. Now for me, that shitty job was working at a pharmacy. It was actually CVS. And I had to do that to pay for university. I had to do that to get through university, and that's just something that most American teenagers can relate to. But the last day of that job, I just remember the feeling, I don't have to deal with this shit anymore. I don't have to do this anymore. And it just feels like a huge weight's been lifted off your shoulders. And that feeling of I don't have to give a shit anymore, I'm not locked down, is amazing. It's fantastic. Looking back on it, I just know that, it actually wasn't that bad. It was just a normal minimum wage job, and my boss, Bill, was a very reasonable person. I was in a situation where I just finished university. I was probably gonna find a job in my field like everyone else does. Marry a woman, settle down, buy a house, get a nice car, do all those things. Work in my field, which was IT at the time, and kind of do everything cookie cutter exactly like all my friends were doing around me. But I was that weirdo. I was that psychopath that decided to leave everything behind and decided to move to China. Now, in the events leading up to this, I had this very skewed image of my own country because I think I did something that a lot of people do. And I looked at America like it was a dead-end place. The economy's going nowhere. This is back in 2008. Things aren't doing very well. I'm 22 years old. Is this what I have to look forward to? I feel like people are just stagnating. I don't think anything's on the up and up. I feel it's almost like a dystopian place. It's almost like a place that used to be great that isn't anymore. It's kind of the excuse that I use for myself throughout a multitude of situations in my life, and I think a lot of people use the same excuse. They blame their surroundings. They blame where they are as opposed to themselves or their personality or their deficiencies or being lazy. They like to point out things that they think are wrong about what's around them. So, I did that with my job, I did that with my country. And moving to China only kind of exacerbated those feelings because here I am, I get off the plane, and yeah, I'm in a country immediately recognizable as a developing country. It's not rich, it's not developed. But what I did notice was that it was on the up. It was exciting, it was refreshing, it was a fantastic place to be, and I felt like there was a lot of perceived opportunities, and just the general sense in the air was that things are gonna get better. That's what it felt like. So those feelings that I had about America being this kind of going nowhere state that I'm happy to leave and, this arrogant American attitude, I'd like to get it out of my system. I kind of felt like when I moved here that things are actually better abroad. This opinion of America kind of continued for a couple years, I'd say, when I was living here, because it was almost like healthy. I got rid of this patriotic American ideal. I never was a nationalist. I never was proud to be an American. In fact, I was quite critical of my own country and own government, but I kind of felt more strongly about that because here I was in a different country and I was allowed to kind of shed my personal identity, my nationality, and try to subscribe to some new ideas, right? Now, living in China was one of the strangest places to do that with, because if I had moved to the UK, I could have blended in. If I had moved to Europe, I could have blended in. But just learning the language and kind of understand the culture here in China is not enough to be Chinese, right? And we've covered this a million times, Winston and I, in a lot of our videos. You will never be Chinese and that kind of stuff. And that's true. People very much take seriously your nationality, where you're from, your culture, your language, your status, the color of your skin, all that kind of stuff is more important than it is back home. That's for damn sure. So it was very, very strange because here I am with this very healthy attitude that there are other cultures and other things out there, and in that way I felt a lot more educated, a lot more woke than the average American, including myself growing up, just simply because I was able to experience other cultures through travel. At the same time, I was also in a country that, you know, is much more patriotic, much more nationalistic, and much more difficult to fit into than my own. So it was this very, very abrupt halt that I came to, and I realized that just because you're moving to a different country doesn't mean that you're going to become part of this, you know, very enlightened society that sees past all this bullshit. Because in fact, there's a lot more bullshit to deal with here than there is back home, despite what you guys might think. The funny thing is when you get past that stage, when you realize that America might not be the best country in the entire world, and that you come to terms with the fact that there are other cultures out there, and you get rid of that pride, you get rid of that blind nationalism, and you just kind of throw yourself into a new culture. But you're in a country like China where your nationality and who you are and where you come from is the lifeblood of your identity. It becomes super conflicting because what happens is all of the stuff that you kind of shed, all of those kind of stereotypes of your own country back home that you don't want to be part of anymore, are still kind of carried with you here by the perceptions and stereotypes that Chinese people have of people from your country. So it's very strange because at that point, when you're participating in, you know, the jokes about Americans being this or that or fat or blah, 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 all that petty stuff that you didn't care about or kind of even laughed about with these people that were able to joke about Americans, all of a sudden those jokes start to burn a little bit because you're still that guy in their eyes, right?
You all go for American?
No, I'm not American.
So there's no escaping that. There's no kind of getting away from that. But I do think that traveling abroad or even living abroad for a short period of time is super, super important to take those blinders down, because although we like to blame our surroundings and what's happening around us, and we like to say America's shit because of this, China's shit because of this, it actually takes a step outside sometimes to kind of realize that sometimes life isn't fair. You are the product of yourself, not your surroundings. You have to get out and change shit. Otherwise, stuff's actually not going to change. I mean, you can't just go abroad and then become a new person. You can't go abroad and completely reinvent yourself. At the end of the day, you are who you are, and either you get off your ass and do something about it, or you don't. But like I said, moving abroad can really, really open up your mind to a less black and white world out there, which I think a lot of people in China and America are also guilty of, is seeing things black or white, seeing things from the news headlines. I'll read comments online, it pisses me off. It says like, let's just go nuke North Korea, right? Without really reading in or understanding the situation. Guess what? I know North Korean people. And guess what? They're polite, they're kind, they're nice people, they're human beings, right? So I feel like taking a step outside and seeing another culture can sometimes, even for a short period of time, just completely get rid of all that bullshit and realize that the earth is just a place full of people. You know, we like to eat food, we like to hang out with our friends, we like to have a nice family, we like to be safe. You know, that's just how shit is. And to see a different country from a different perspective and judge its people based on its political system, completely inaccurate. So when I look back at America, the country that I was born and grew up in, what do I see? What is the country I see? Every time I go back, I see a nation now. Instead of the messed up, complete dystopian society circling the bowl of once greatness. I don't see that anymore. What I see is a nation full of polite people, a nation full of opportunities, they do exist, a nation full of social programs that China would die to have, a nation full of people that might just need a kick in the pants sometimes to realize how good they actually have it. And I see America as just a beautifully diverse nation full of people that borrow from each other's cultures. I think it's fantastic. Being here so long in China, how do I see China? I see China as a nation that really needs to open up its mind to the rest of the world. The world does not revolve around China whatsoever. You might be an economic superpower in the making, but you're not ready to be taken seriously in terms of a lot of aspects in life and society. What I do see is a country chock full of opportunities for local citizens and people doing a lot with just a little on their plate. A very, very go-getter society for sure. There's a bright future for China if things play in the correct direction. And while I can safely say that both America and China are equally fascinating places, it sometimes takes a step outside of your own country to kind of realize how good that you once had it. And sometimes that step takes 8 years. I want to say thank you so much, Laowinners. I hope you appreciated the episode. Got some good stuff coming up for you guys. Please leave a like downstairs if you have, and if you want to see more content, I've been posting a lot on patreon.com/laowinner6, behind the scenes stuff I can't really talk about on Patreon or on YouTube. I can't really talk about a lot of stuff, so it goes up there. And I really appreciate it, Laowinners. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.